Konam village lies nestled between vertical limestone mountains, completely isolated from the outside world by a single path running through an old bamboo forest. In the 12th year of the Yongle reign, this land was still a mysterious place, where the king's law seemed to stop at the village gate, giving way to the unwritten laws of ancient clans. The whole village has over 60 rooftops, clustered by a small stream. But absolutely no one dares to build a house in the west, because that is the land of the ancient city god temple. Lying lonely under the canopy of a 1,000-year-old banyan tree, roots intertwined like giant pythons hugging the mossy tiled roof. The people of Konam village whispered to each other through generations that this temple was not built to pray for blessings, but to suppress something dangerous buried 300 years ago. The fake peace of the village began to crack in the last days of the 7th lunar month. That year, autumn arrived earlier than usual. Fog from the top of Vongkak mountain spilled down into the valley right at dusk, swallowing the red dirt roads and turning rows of trees into ghostly black shadows. The air became thick and humid, carrying the smell of mold from the old forest and a strange, fishy scent, faintly like the smell of mud from a deep river bottom just dug up. The elderly in the village began to feel uneasy. They noticed the hunting dogs in the village, famously fierce, suddenly became strangely docile. They crawled under the bed, tails tucked tight between hind legs, whining all night, panic-stricken eyes staring towards the temple in the west. The old temple keeper, who had spent 60 years of his life sweeping banyan leaves in the temple courtyard, was the first to clearly feel this change. He lived in a small hut about 30 steps from the temple gate. Normally, the space here is so quiet, you can hear a leaf fall. But tonight, that silence carries an invisible weight pressing on the chest. At the rat hour, night of the 14th dawning into the 15th, the old temple keeper was tossing and turning on his bamboo cot when he suddenly smelled incense smoke. It was not the sweet scent of agar wood that villagers usually offered on the full moon or first day. It was a pungent, acrid smell assaulting the nose, like the smell of thousands of cheap incense sticks burning at once, mixed with the smell of scorched fabric. The old man sat up abruptly, heart pounding in his aged chest. He knew clearly he had locked the temple door tight with an ironwood latch as thick as an adult's arm before sunset. And in this village, no one dared to venture here at this hour. Summoning all courage, the old man lit an oil lamp, hands shaking to shield it from wind, and stepped out of the hut. Outside, the night was pitch black like India ink. The wind had stopped blowing completely, making the oil lamp flame stand perfectly still. He narrowed his eyes, looking towards the temple. The scene before his eyes made his knees want to buckle. Through the crack of the heavy ironwood doors, a glowing red light was spilling out, dancing madly on the tiled courtyard floor. Inside the main hall, usually pitch dark and cold, a large black bronze incense bowl placed in the center of the altar was burning furiously. The old incense sticks, accumulated over many years, were catching fire blazing. The most terrifying thing was not the fire, but the way it burned. There was no wind. Doors closed tight, but the flames twisted and writhed as if dozens of invisible hands were trying to pluck those incense sticks out of the ash bowl. Crisp, crackling, popping sounds rang out in the quiet late night, sounding like bones shattering. The old temple keeper wanted to scream, wanted to run back to the village to report, but his throat seized up as if strangled by someone. He stood rooted to the spot, staring blankly into the door crack, where that bizarre fire was starting to lick up to the gold-lacquered horizontal board hanging high above. With the desperate strength of someone cornered, The old temple keeper grabbed the wooden bucket of rainwater in the corner of the porch and rushed straight toward the main door. The heavy ironwood door burst open with an ear-piercing groan, like the wailing of old wood being awakened. Inside the shrine, the heat that hit was not the warmth of fire, but a spine-chilling cold air, completely contrary to the image of the fire dancing madly in the incense bowl. The sickly yellow firelight cast upon the city god statue, making his originally dignified face look like it was smirking in a distorted way. The old man didn't dare look straight at the statue. Trembling hands splashed the bucket of water hard into the center of the altar. A loud hiss rang out, prolonged and hissing through teeth like the sound of a venomous snake exhaling. White smoke burst up blindly, rolling to fill the small hall, carrying a pungent, burnt smell that was suffocating. The old man coughed violently, backing away, hands still clutching the empty wooden bucket. It took half an hour later, when the smoke had cleared somewhat, for him to dare approach to check. The black bronze incense bowl was now soaked, half-burnt incense sticks lying messy and blackened. He sighed in relief, locked the door carefully, and returned to the hut, but absolutely could not sleep a wink. All that night, he felt like someone was standing right outside the watchtower window, staring at his back. The next morning, when the weak, early autumn sunlight pierced through the dense banyan foliage, the old temple keeper returned to the shrine to clean up last night's ruins. As soon as the door opened, he stood frozen. The water in the incense bowl had evaporated completely sometime, even though the night had been extremely humid. But what made his scalp tingle was the pile of ash. The half-burnt incense sticks and wet ash did not lie messy as usual. They stuck together, curving and arranging intentionally on the fine ash surface, creating a bizarre shape. The old man rubbed his eyes 3 times, but the image did not change. It was an ancient character, sharp strokes, neat as if carved by a sharp knife, looking exactly like the word adversity, written backwards. The news spread as fast as wind blowing through dry grass. Less than an hour later, the 5 most prestigious elders of Konam village were present at the temple courtyard. Without being told, they walked softly, everyone's face solemn as if at a funeral. The clan chief Lee, the oldest in the village, with white hair and an onion bun, was the first to step up to examine the incense bowl. He narrowed his cloudy eyes, leaning his face close to the altar. His skinny hand intended to touch that strange ash, but then retracted instantly as if touching hot fire. "It's not good," Elder Lai whispered, his trembling voice breaking the suffocating silence in the shrine. "This is not an omen. This is a command." The other 4 looked at each other, cold sweat breaking out on their foreheads despite the chilly weather. In this Konam village, everyone knew the oral stories about suppression talismans buried under house foundations, but never had they seen such a clear bad omen right in the most sacred place. "Whose command?" A middle-aged man in the group of elders, originally the bravest, asked, but his voice also wavered with fear. Elder Lee did not answer immediately. He turned his back to the incense bowl, looking out to the temple courtyard where the old banyan tree cast a gloomy shadow. The wind suddenly rose, blowing dry leaves rustling on the brick yard, creating small vortices swirling around the elder's feet, as if wanting to hold them back. "Of the one lying down there," Elder Lai replied, finger pointing straight down to the red brick floor beneath their feet. 300 years. It has awakened. The air in the temple suddenly became so cold that everyone shivered. Just then, a strong wind suddenly rushed in, blowing the side window of the temple to slam against the wall with a bang, making the crowd jump. On the altar, though there was no fire, A thin wisp of smoke suddenly rose from the cold incense bowl, drifting lazily toward the main door, like a ghost finding its way out. The bad news about the character Adversity appearing in the incense bowl spread faster than a plague. By noon, the atmosphere in Konam village was as tense as a string about to snap. People abandoned fieldwork, hurriedly herded buffaloes to stables, bolted doors even though the sun was still high overhead. Mothers hugged children tight, praying in murmurs, eyes stealing glances toward the bamboo forest leading to the ancient temple. The Council of Elders met urgently at the communal house right after noon. After 3 rounds of tea discussing an extreme anxiety, the elders decided they could not sit and wait for death. 12 strongest young men, carefully selected from the clans, were assigned the duty to guard the temple tonight. They were all muscular youths, brawny shoulders, who normally could carry 100 kilos of rice briskly on the dike road. They were equipped with sharpened bamboo spears, pine resin torches, and each wore a sharp jungle knife at their side. According to the instructions of Clan Chief Lee, all must be unmarried men, with vitality at its peak to suppress the yin energy of the temple. Sunset fell blood red like diluted blood spilling over the western sky. The group quietly marched toward the temple, footsteps thundering, but no one uttered a half word. They stationed right at the brick courtyard before the temple, lighting 4 large bonfires at 4 corners to dispel the darkness. Flickering firelight clearly illuminated tense faces, sweat pouring down temples even though the night wind started blowing cold. The old temple keeper was also present, sitting curled up in the porch corner, hand counting rosary beads, mouth mumbling unclear peace prayers. The first 2 watches passed in suffocating silence. Only the sound of popping firewood and crickets chirping from the bushes at the forest edge. The initial tension gradually relaxed a bit. Several young guys started whispering, reassuring each other that perhaps last night's event was just the senile old keeper seeing things. But then, at the exact moment of transition from dog hour to pig hour, the wind suddenly fell completely silent. The flames from 4 bonfires burning furiously suddenly shrank, weak as if about to extinguish, even though dry wood was still plentiful. And then, a strange scent began to creep into the smell of the 12 men. At first it was a sweet scent, enchanting, like the smell of blooming magnolia mixed with the smell of ancient women's cosmetic powder. That scent was soothing, caressing the tense nerves of the young men, making their eyelids heavy. Sleepiness crashing in quickly like an anesthetic. A few had loosened their grip on weapons, heads nodding. Wake up! The quiet but sharp shout of the team leader made everyone startle awake. The moment they opened their eyes wide, that sweet scent vanished suddenly, as if it never existed. Instead, the space was invaded by a pungent, terrible stench, indescribable. It was the smell of long rotting meat in a closed cellar. Smell of dead rats bloating in summer sun, mixed with the smell of freshly congealed blood. The stench was thick as if solid, creeping into every pore, clinging to skin, rushing straight into the throat. Wretch. One person couldn't take it, clutching stomach and vomiting violently right there. Then the second. The third. The strongest young men of Konam, who once killed wild boars with bare hands, now had pale green faces, tears and snot streaming because they couldn't breathe. They felt like their lungs were inhaling toxic miasma from hell. In dizziness and nausea, they heard from inside the sealed temple, where the stench was strongest, faint creak, creak sounds. It sounded like sharp fingernails scratching lightly on a wooden coffin lid. The scratching sound inside the shrine stopped abruptly, as the watchman's wooden bell echoed from Konam village, signaling the rat hour had struck. Silence crashed down on the temple courtyard, heavier than a boulder. The pungent stench from earlier vanished as quickly as it appeared, returning the space to air that was crystal clear, but bone-chilling. This cold did not come from night dew or mountain wind, but radiated from the red brick floor beneath the 12 men's feet, piercing through thick soles, soaking straight into marrow, making their teeth chatter. The team leader, hands still gripping the bamboo staff, signaled the brothers to retreat, keeping a distance of 3 rods from the main door. The 4 large bonfires in the corners were now just weak, glowing embers. Though dry wood was piled high, the fire kept dying, as if an invisible hand was choking its life source. Suddenly, from the gap between the 2 ironwood doors, a strange beam of light shot out, illuminating the mossy stone steps. Not the red-orange of common fire, nor the sickly yellow of oil lamps. It was a bicolor green light, pale and cold like pearls under the deep sea, or rather, exactly the color of phosphorescent spots flickering on new graves in the cemetery. Curiosity conquering fear, 2 boldest young men crept closer, putting eyes to the crack on the rotting wooden wall. The scene inside froze them to death. Pupils dilated fully, mouths gaping, but unable to utter a word. On the altar, the black bronze incense bowl was burning once again, but this fire had no heat. It danced and undulated slowly, drifting as if floating in water, not burning in air. The red-hot incense tips now turned sickly green, emitting a ghostly light illuminating dust motes suspended in the quiet space. The most terrifying thing began to happen right before their eyes. Normally, incense smoke must be light and rise high, dissipating in the air. But the smoke from this bowl was heavy. They roiled, thick as milk, refusing to rise to the ceiling but overflowing the bowl rim, crashing down onto the altar table like a flood. That milky white smoke stream crawled past candle stands, glided past withered fruit plates, then dropped to the tiled floor below. Touching the ground, they did not dissolve. On the contrary, the smoke gathered, huddled, and transformed. Under the ghostly green light, the men outside saw clearly those smoke streams twisting, elongating, forming the shapes of long snakes. "Run. Run fast," one person whispered, voice choked in throat. Those smoke snakes did not stay still. They began crawling on the floor, heading straight for the main door. They slipped through the gap under the wooden door, slowly crawling out to the porch. 12 men backed away in panic, stumbling over each other. They saw those milky white, cold smoke streams crawl over stone steps, sliding down to the brickyard. They did not attack them, nor care about the human presence. The smoke snakes glided past the legs of the strong men, leaving a numbing sensation like cold ice pressed on flesh, then continued crawling away. They headed straight for the red dirt road leading to Konam village. Dozens, then hundreds of white smoke trails followed each other, silent and eerie, like an invisible army marching in the dark, crawling toward sleeping houses where wives, children, and parents of the men were resting. The leader tremblingly raised the pine resin torch, trying to light the way to see where they went. But the torch flame, upon touching the smoke, extinguished instantly with a ghastly sizzling sound, as if dipped in cold water. The next morning's dawn shone down on Konam village, a pale, weak light, like someone just recovering from sickness. The fog did not dissipate as usual, but lingered around thatched roofs, clinging to bamboo tops at the village entrance like white funeral silk strips. 12 strong men guarding the temple returned to the village when the rooster just crowed the first watch. Everyone's face was dazed, haggard, as if aged 10 years in just one night. They dared not utter a half word about the smoke snakes that crawled over their legs. But that terrifying silence made the villagers even more bewildered. However, true horror only struck when households living on the west edge, nearest the road to the temple, opened their livestock stables. A frantic scream of the blacksmith's wife tore apart the quiet early morning atmosphere. She fell, sitting right in front of the buffalo stable, hand pointing inside, mouth stammering soundlessly. Neighbors rushed over, holding hoes and shovels, thinking there were thieves. But then all stood rooted to the spot, at the scene laid out before their eyes. 3 strongest dream buffaloes of the hamlet, the biggest fortune of the blacksmith's house, had been dead stiff for some time. But they did not die of plague or attack by wild beasts. No foaming at the mouth, no bite marks, nor signs of struggling or smashing the stable. All 3 giant animals died in a posture weird to the point of spine-chilling. Their 2 front legs bent to the ground, heads bowed low to the stable floor. 2 hind legs still standing straight. It was exactly the posture of prostrating, worshipping, and what made everyone's spine cold. All 3 buffalo heads pointed straight to the west, the direction of the city god temple. Bad news followed bad news. In less than 15 minutes, crying sounds rang out from 10 other households lying along that single road. Pigs in sties, dogs guarding doors, even chickens in yards. All livestock and poultry in that area died completely, and all, without exception, died in a posture kneeling down to the ground, head facing the ancient temple, as if forced by an invisible force to perform rituals before breathing their last. Elder Lee and elders hurriedly used canes to go check. The air around these animal corpses was unusually cold. Though dead for many hours, flies absolutely dared not land on them. The eyes of the animals stared wide open, pupils fully dilated, imprinted with an extreme terror that humans could not comprehend. Bury immediately. Dig a hole 7 cubits deep immediately. Absolutely no one can cut meat to eat. Elder Lai screamed, voice breaking, hand trembling, directing the young men. He understood this was not a normal death. This was punishment, or worse, a sacrificial offering. The invisible fear now manifested clearly, covering the entire Konam village like a pitch-black net. Without being told, all daily activities ceased. Children were strictly forbidden to step out of the threshold. The strongest men only dared to walk within their own yards, hands always gripping weapons. That day passed in a heaviness to the point of suffocation. People just hoped it wouldn't get dark. But the laws of nature did not stop for human fear. When the sunset light just extinguished behind the western mountains, before the horn signaling curfew could sound, the sound of door bolts latching rang out across alleys. Konam Village, famous for clear moon, cool breeze nights, boys and girls singing love duets, now suddenly turned into a dead village. Not a single oil lamp was lit, not a single dog bark. The whole village sank into thick darkness and absolute silence. People huddled together in dark houses, holding breath, listening to the smallest sound from outside, fearfully waiting to see if tonight invisible guests from that temple would visit their home. While the whole Konam village huddled in terror, at the Lee clan's ancestral hall, 5 oil lamps were still burning brightly. 5 elders heading the village clan sat surrounding the shiny black ironwood table. In the center of the table, not tea as usual, but an ebony chest with peeling lacquer, locked by a rusty brass padlock. This is the secret chronicle chest, passed down through 10 generations of clan chiefs. An inseparable item Elder Lee always hid under his bed never revealed to descendants. Elder Lee's hand trembled, inserting the dragon head-shaped key into the lock. A dry click sounded. The lid popped open, releasing the smell of moldy old paper and dry ink accumulated over 3 centuries. Inside was a buffalo leather notebook, rotting at the corners. Elder Lie carefully turned each yellowed page, brittle as dry leaves, stopping at scribbled lines written in the year of the rat, exactly 300 years ago. "Read it." Elder Lie pushed the notebook toward the elders, voice hoarse like wind whistling through bamboo pipes. "To know who we are worshiping and who we owe." Under flickering oil lamps, the naked truth about the city god temple's origin gradually emerged through ancient Han Nam characters. It turned out the god villagers worshipped for generations was not a benevolent god who reclaimed land and founded the hamlet, as rumored. It was a defense commander of the old court, named Louis, who led remnants of an army and a large amount of gold and jewelry fleeing chaos to this rugged mountain region. Ancestors of Konam village welcomed that official, not with hospitality, but with malice and bottomless greed. On a stormy night, they drugged the soldiers with poisoned wine until drunk, then slaughtered them all to seize that gold and silver. But the most terrible thing lay in the final lines of the diary page. To hide the crime and keep the vengeful spirit from taking revenge, as well as to borrow the dead's power to guard the stolen treasure, high-level sorcerers of that time offered a cruel plan. They did not kill Louis immediately. They tied him tight to an ironwood post, gagged him, blindfolded him, then buried him alive in a standing position right at the acupuncture point of the western land. The city god temple was built right on top of that buried alive body. Wealth keeper god, Elder Lie whispered, aged eyes welling with tears. We have deceived descendants for 300 years that it was the city god protecting the village. But in reality, that temple is a prison. The incense sticks we light daily are not for respect, but are talismans to suppress, to lull his rage to sleep. The other 4 elders' faces were drained of blood. They looked at each other, then looked out at the pitch-black night outside the window. Now they understood why the fire was green, why ash formed the word adversity, and why livestock died in kneeling posture, apologizing. The seal of incense smoke and curses over 3 centuries has been broken. The one lying under that cold temple floor has awakened, and he did not wake up to bless. He woke up to claim the blood debt that descendants of the traitors of yesteryear must pay. Suddenly, the oil lamp in the middle of the table blew out, though there was no wind. In the darkness covering the ancestral hall, the sound of termites gnawing house pillars suddenly became strangely loud, sounding crunching like human bones being crushed. The dark secret revealed in the ancestral hall had not yet settled when the true nightmare began to rise outside. On the 3rd night since the incense bowl burned, the space around Konam village sank into a suspicious silence. No cricket sounds, no wind sounds. Even the familiar trickling stream seemed swallowed by the dense night. But then, exactly at the ox hour, when people's sleep was most fitful, a dull, heavy sound rang out, shattering the thick atmosphere. Boom, boom, boom. It was the sound of a drum. Not the cheerful festival opera drum, nor the communal house drum signaling a meeting. It was the sound of a war drum. The rhythm was slow, steady, but each sound carried a weight of 1,000 pounds, echoing from the west, crashing straight into the cliff, creating mournful sounds like groaning from underground. Old people who had experienced war sat up, faces drained of blood. They recognized that sound immediately. It was the command drum, the sound used to maneuver troops in the old days, signaling the hour of slaughter deployment. The drum sound got louder, more urgent. Intermixed with the drums was the sound of bronze gongs clashing, clanging, cold and sharp. The whole Konam village shook lightly, as if lying on the back of a giant beast stirring. Though terrified to the extreme, the thought, "Must know what is happening," urged a group of the most reckless people. Leading was Elder Lai's eldest son, with 5 toughest hunters in the region. Holding torches and hard crossbows, they gritted teeth, advancing toward the temple. The closer they got, the noisier and more chaotic it became. They swore they heard thundering footsteps of 1,000 people, armor clashing, horses neighing sky high, and shouts of "Kill! Kill!" echoing from the void. But when their torchlight shone on the temple gate, all those sounds vanished instantly. Silence. Absolute. Only the sound of fire crackling on the torch tip remained. The temple gate was wide open, even though it was locked tight before. The temple courtyard was empty. Not a soul, not a strange footprint. But the smell of killing intent was so strong, it made their facial skin sting, as if pricked by needles. Elder Lee's son swallowed hard, raised the torch high, stepped over the wooden threshold to shine into the shrine. Just seeing the city god's statue, he dropped the torch to the ground, mouth gaping, legs trembling so much he couldn't stand. 5 hunters behind also froze dead, faces pale green. The majestic defense commander's statue of gilded jackfruit wood, which for 300 years always sat on a high throne, eyes looking straight at the main door to monitor villagers, had now changed. He had turned his back. The statue was not moved at all, the base still attached tight to the dusty altar. But the upper body of the statue had rotated 180 degrees, facing the dark rear sanctuary wall. The large, rough statue back, full of cracks of time, now loomed facing the group standing frozen at the door. That image carried a silent message, but more horrific than any curse. Rejection. The deity, or rather the vengeful spirit, had turned his back on the descendants of the traitors. He no longer wanted to see their faces, and no longer accepted any pleas. Under the flickering light of the torch on the ground, people also horrifiedly realized, from cracks along the wooden statue's spine, a dark red, thick liquid was oozing out, flowing down to the altar like streams of bloody tears. Facing the scene of the god turning his back and blood tears flowing, the despair of Konam village had hit rock bottom. No longer daring to expect protection from ancestors, the Council of Elders decided to empty the village fund to invite a high-level sorcerer from the distant Hakdik Mountains to resolve the calamity. The invited person was Master Mo Pao, a famous sorcerer across the border region with over 40 years of experience suppressing the most ferocious spirits. Legend has it he once caught a buffalo ghost in Muang Te with bare hands, trapped it in a ceramic jar, and buried it deep under the stream bed. Master Mo Pao's appearance brought the last fragile ray of hope for over 300 lives living in constant fear. The ritual was set for exactly the horse hour, noon, when the sun is highest and yang energy strongest, to suppress the yin energy covering the temple. An unprecedentedly large altar was erected right in the middle of the temple courtyard. Offerings piled high as a mountain, a golden roasted pig, 12 trays of bright red sticky rice, white wine aged 5 years, and thousands of gold paper ingots. Master Mo Pao wore a robe embroidered with the 5 poisons, hand holding a shiny black peachwood sword, stepping onto the altar with dignified bearing. Hundreds of Konam villagers gathered around, but all stood more than 10 rods away from the altar. No one dared breathe loud. Hundreds of eyes focused on every gesture of the old sorcerer. The noon air was sultry, hot to the point of suffocation. However, when Master Mopao started chanting secret spells, a bone-chilling cold wind blew from somewhere, extinguishing 2 beeswax candles as thick as an adult's wrist. Master Mopao frowned, forehead beading with sweat, but continued swinging the wooden sword in decisive arcs to cut the invisible evil energy. To the most important part of the ceremony, offering incense to apologize. Master Mopao pulled out 3 Great Fortune incense sticks, as thick as a thumb, dark red body, made from rare agarwood powder mixed with rhinoceros horn powder. He lit the fire. Incense smoke rose thickly, fragrant, making the crowd below sigh in slight relief. It seemed the deity, or that vengeful spirit, had accepted the offering. Master Mopao respectfully raised 3 incense sticks above his head, walking slowly toward the bronze censer, placed temporarily in the yard, as no one dared enter the shrine anymore. He knelt down, mouth murmuring prayers of the true name of the old defense commander, begging him to spare the lives of the descendants of the guilty. But when his hand just touched the censer mouth to plant the first stick, a dry crack rang out ear-piercingly. That sound was crisp and sharp, exactly like the sound of a shin bone being snapped, echoing across the quiet temple courtyard. The incense stick in Master Mopao's hand snapped in 2. The whole crowd gasped in horror. According to spiritual rules, incense breaking midway is a supremely toxic omen, signaling the most brutal rejection of the underworld. But a more terrible thing happened right after. Master Mopao screamed a frantic cry, dropping the remaining part of the incense, staggering backward. He held his hand up in front of his face, eyes bulging as if popping out of sockets. From the jagged break of the dry bamboo incense stick on the ground, a stream of bright red liquid was spurting out, gushing. It was blood. Fresh blood, hot and fishy. That monstrous blood flowed streaming from the inanimate bamboo stick body, staining the wrinkled hand of the sorcerer red, dripping drop by drop onto the temple yard brick floor. Drops of blood touching the ground boiled furiously, emitting pitch-black smoke.
No,
"It doesn't accept! It doesn't accept!"
Why are you doing this to me?
Master Mopao screamed, voice lost in terror. It doesn't want gold and silver. It wants blood, to pay blood debt. Just finishing words, the sky shining bright sunny, suddenly darkened completely. Black clouds from 4 mountain peaks rushed in, covering the sun so fast people thought someone just threw a giant black cloth over the valley. A tornado wind rose furiously, tossing offering trays, sweeping thousands of gold paper ingots into the sky, creating a white rain of paper money, spinning madly like a collective funeral. That strange storm dissipated as quickly as it came, leaving Konham village sinking in a deadly silence. Master Mopao, once considered the savior, fled for his life as soon as the rain stopped, daring not look back, leaving behind the precious broken peachwood sword in the temple yard. The sorcerer's flight was the last straw, collapsing the last bit of courage of the villagers. Without being told, the quickest family started packing luggage. They grabbed clothes,
Keep
food,
moving, don't look back.
carried children, deciding to leave the land right in the night. Better to sleep in dust and bushes at the district town than stay in this cursed place for 1 more hour. The line of people snaked together out to the single road leading out of the valley. But when the leaders just set foot at the edge of the bamboo forest, they stopped short. Panicked screams tearing the night. The road had disappeared. Ahead of them was no longer the familiar trail leading to the outside world. Instead, there was a wall of white fog, dense and towering, touching the sky. That fog layer did not stand still. It roiled, thick as cotton, blocking every escape. A few young men risked lives holding torches, rushing into the fog to find a way. But after only 3 steps, their torchlight was swallowed completely. Calling voices died out. A moment later, they stumbled back, faces drained of blood, mouths stammering. No road. Kept walking, but returned to the old place. Imprisoned in their own village, over 300 desperate people quietly retreated back home. They closed wooden doors tight, wedging tables, chairs, chests across the entrance. Men holding machetes guarded windows. Women and children huddled in darkest corners, plugging ears tight to not hear night sounds. But they could not plug ears against the sound coming. Exactly midnight, when fog had flooded every alley, creeping through window cracks into every house, a new sound appeared. Knock, knock, knock. It was knocking. Gentle, slow, and polite to the point of creepy. It was not the aggressive banging of wild beasts, nor the wind slamming. It was the sound of bony knuckles tapping steadily on wood. At first, the knock rang at the hamlet chief's house at Village Edge. Knock, knock, knock. 3 decisive sounds, then silence, then 3 more. But then, horror spread when people realized an absurd truth. That knocking sound rang out simultaneously at all houses, whether at village start or end, mud cottage or jackfruit wood tiled house, all heard knock, 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 right at their door at the same time, as if hundreds of invisible beings stood before hundreds of doors, simultaneously raising hands to knock. In Elder Lie's wooden house, the 3-generation family sat huddled on the mahogany bed. The knocking outside became more urgent, more rapid, but kept that ghostly, steady rhythm. And mixed in the knocking, another sound began creeping through wooden wall cracks, whispering. Thousands of voices overlapping, hissing like wind through leaves, but with human intonation. They did not speak clear sentences, just repeating disjointed, gloomy, resentful words. Give back blood. Oh, blood. Open door. Out. Children started screaming in fear, but immediately had mouths clamped tight by parents' trembling hands. No one dared speak. No one dared breathe loud. They knew clearly, just one sound from inside. The thing standing outside that fragile door would know where they were. And then, the knocking stopped abruptly. The silence covering was more scary than the noise. Creak. The door latch of Elder Lie's house, though barred with a large ironwood plank and wedged with a heavy tea cabinet, suddenly rotated automatically. The wooden latch groaned, slowly sliding out of the lock bracket as if an invisible hand was undoing it from inside. The wooden door of Elder Lie's house burst wide open, slamming hard against the wall, creating a loud noise, shaking the whole house. No one stood there. Only opaque white mist rolled in, carrying bone-chilling cold and the heavy stench of death. Elder Lie's whole family huddled in a corner, eyes staring wide at the empty space before the door. They saw no form, but they felt the presence. An invisible pressure weighed down on chests, making no one able to breathe. The only oil lamp in the house blew out. Darkness swallowed everything, leaving only gasping breath and teeth chattering. At the same time, at the city god temple at Village End, the suppression of 300 years reached its limit. Boom! A thunderous explosion rang out from the main hall, though the sky had not a single lightning bolt. The giant black bronze incense bowl on the altar shattered into 100 pieces. From that pile of ruined ash, a fire flared up. But it was not red fire. It was a blue flame, cold and brilliantly ghostly. It did not flare up to the roof tiles to burn down the temple. Instead, it spilled out into the yard like liquid lava, flowing over the steps, gliding on the ground with terrifying speed. The blue fire split into 3 large branches, winding like 3 fire dragons, tearing the night and fog, rushing toward Konam village. The bizarre thing was that fire had eyes. It glided past dry, old bamboo bushes without catching fire. It flowed past thatched mud houses of poor tenants without causing a single scorch mark. It ignored everything, as if it had its own target. Its targets were the 3 largest, grandest tiled houses in the village, dwelling of direct descendants of the 3 clans leading the massacre yesteryear. The first fire branch rushed straight into Elder Lee's house. When neighbors peeked through door cracks looking over, they witnessed a hell-on-earth scene. The blue fire did not ignite pillars from outside, but slipped through the open main door and windows, crashing inside like a flood. Heart-rending, frantic screams rang out. Not screams of people being burned, but screams of those facing demons. "Help! Help me! It's looking at me!" The voice of Elder Lie's eldest son rang out, then died out in the growl of fire. People standing outside, through flickering blue firelight cast on walls, saw black shadows printed on windows. Those were not shadows of people fleeing, but shadows of people being lifted into the air, limbs flailing madly, then thrown hard into the sea of fire. In the houses of clan chiefs Tran and Pham, similar scenes took place. The fire surrounded tight, sealing every exit. Roof tiles popped, crackling, falling, showering to the ground. Fire licked up every ironwood pillar, every precious mahogany bed and tea cabinet. But strangely, the fire absolutely did not spread to the neighbor's house, though eaves of 2 houses were less than 2 spans apart. It was isolated, focused, and cruel in a precise way. The remaining villagers, those not of those 3 clans, only knew to hug each other tight in darkness, plugging ears to not hear the pathetic screaming of those being burned alive. They heard in the roaring fire not just popping wood, but also manic, wild laughter and clashing weapons. That night, Konham village glowed bright in one corner of the sky with blue firelight. 3 pitch-black smoke columns rose straight up, piercing through thick fog, carrying the smell of burnt flesh flying 10 miles away. Not a single person dared step out to extinguish the fire. They knew that was not a fire accident. That was a death sentence pronounced 3 centuries ago. And now was the time for execution. When the first sunlight of the new day pierced through lead-gray clouds, Konam village appeared in a silence to the point of spine-chilling. The fog and invisible wall surrounding the village last night had vanished, returning a clear path to the outside. But at this moment, no one had enough strength left to run away. People stepped out one by one from tightly closed houses, eyes dark and sunken deep from insomnia. They gathered towards the village center, where last night the blue fire raged most violently. The scene before their eyes made the faint-hearted turn away, covering mouths gagging dryly. The 3 grandest mansions of Lee, Tran, Pham clans, pride of wealth for generations, had disappeared completely. No wooden pillars left, no roof tiles left. Even laterite walls 3 spans thick crumbled into sand and dust. All that remained were 3 bare, flat plots, covered in a thick layer of ash, white as lime powder, standing out amidst the dark brown soil of the village. The strange thing was, the fire last night obeyed an absolute boundary. Chrysanthemum bushes planted right by Elder Lee's wall were still fresh, not scorched even a petal, while right next to it, A massive ironwood building had turned into nothingness. The bravest men used shovels and hoes to dig in the ash, hoping to find bodies of the ill-fated for burial. But the more they dug, the horror on their faces became clearer. Nothing at all. Not a bone, not a piece of cloth, not a metal object remained. Earthly fire burns flesh, leaving bone. But the ghostly blue fire last night seemed to have swallowed everything, erasing their existence from this world. Look!
Over there!
Someone suddenly shouted, pointing down at the only Bat Trong brick floor remaining in the farmhouse main hall. On the red-baked bricks cracked by high heat, dark black streaks were imprinted. Those were not random burn marks. Those black streaks had human shapes. A large shadow spreading 2 arms, mouth open wide in screaming posture. A smaller shadow curled up, hugging knees. And another shadow crawling toward the door, trying to escape. Those were ash shadows. Final traces of flesh and blood humans, burned by hellfire so fast that soul and body turned to ash simultaneously, printed straight onto the bricks forever. In that deadly silence, people suddenly remembered the source of the calamity. The crowd shuddered, looking west, where the city god temple was located. A group quietly advanced to the temple. Temple gates wide open, revealing the desolate scene inside. The courtyard was full of dry, dead bird bodies fallen from the banyan tree. The black bronze incense bowl shattered, lying scattered everywhere. But when they raised eyes to the altar, everyone stopped, heart pounding. The defense commander statue, who turned his back the night before, now had turned his face back. He sat there, dignified on the throne, face facing straight at the main door, looking down at the trembling villagers below. However, the face of the statue had changed. The statue's eyes, originally painted gentle black and white, now turned bloodshot red. And from those inanimate wooden sockets, 2 long black streaks flowed down cheeks, dried, looking exactly like 2 dried streams of bloody tears. That turning back did not mean forgiveness. It was like the declaration of a judge who just finished executing a death sentence. Blood debt is paid enough. No one dared enter the shrine to clean. No one dared light another incense stick. They backed out of the temple gate, closed the heavy wooden doors tight, then used thick iron chains to wrap tight, locked with 3 large padlocks, as if wanting to seal this horror forever behind the door. After that horrific tragedy, Konham village did not die immediately, but died slowly, like an uprooted tree. Though the blood debt was paid, though the defense commander statue turned back, the obsession with ash shadows on bricks and the smell of burnt human flesh still clung to the minds of the living. No one had enough courage left to continue living on that land. The first to leave was the blacksmith's family, right the morning after the fire. Then came the teacher's family, the farmer's family. Just like that, every day a few ox carts carrying miscellaneous stuff quietly left the village gate. No one said goodbye. No one promised to meet again. They left like fleeing a plague-ridden land, only hoping to wipe clean memories of their birthplace. In just 3 short years, the once bustling Konam village turned into a dead village. Thatch grass and wild vines from the old forest quickly overflowed, swallowing brick roads, climbing onto roofs, piercing through gaping windows. Thatched mud houses collapsed under rain and sun, becoming dens for foxes, weasels, and centipedes. Only the foundations of the 3 large houses burned down years ago remained bare, weeds absolutely daring not grow on that white ash layer. The city god temple at Village End was now completely surrounded by the old bamboo forest. The ancient banyan tree grew weirdly strong, its giant roots dropping down like prison bars, hugging tight the whole temple architecture, blocking sunlight. The ironwood doors still closed tight, lock rusted with time, but no one dared approach to break it. People around the region started calling that valley area sacred forest, a taboo land absolutely no one allowed to venture to, especially after sunset. However, creepy stories were still whispered by firesides of neighboring villages. Woodcutters coming home late recount that on late July nights, when moon obscured by clouds, passing the old path to Konam, they still smell a strange scent. It was not forest flower smell, but scent of fragrant agarwood incense mixed with acrid smell of burning wood. That scent lingered in the fog, clinging to the traveler's footsteps for a whole mile before fading. Someone bolder swore seeing from afar, peeking behind dense old bamboo clumps, a weak blue light still casting on the pitch-black sky. That light flickered, ghostly, emitting from the exact location of the abandoned temple. And most scary, whenever northeast monsoon rushed in, whistling through wall cracks of abandoned houses in the valley, people heard a sound echoing back. It was not wind sound, but sounded exactly like door knocking. Knock, knock, knock. Steady, patient, and eternal, as if the owner of the temple was still awake, still sitting on the throne in eternal darkness, waiting for the next greedy ones wandering into his land to claim the debt that never truly ended. The city god temple still stood there, cold and lonely in the old forest, becoming an indelible scar of the border mountain region, reminding the world of the price to pay for greed and betrayal.